Geek Out!
Hey, and welcome to another installment of Catching Up. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
I'm Jake.
We've got a interview this week with Tommy Patterson. He's here promoting his Image Comics series, Citizen Jack, which gets its first collection out everywhere today, because this is Wednesday.
It is Wednesday.
Yeah. It comes. That's right. The review came out yesterday.
That's right.
This
We
is
good.
Yeah, I got it all right.
We good.
But it's in comic book shops everywhere and on Comixology now today. So you should totally get it. You don't have an excuse. Him and Sam Humphries did the book, so we got him on the show to talk about just all the parallels in the election year and everything. Yeah. But yeah, let's let Tommy talk about it. And joining us this week, we've got comic book artist Tommy Patterson. He's here to promote his Image Comics series, Citizen Jack. He's also done the Game of Thrones comic, the Farscape comic, and the Warriors adaptation for Dynamite.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's wild. Did you just hear that the Russos are going to...
Yeah, I heard about the TV show.
Yeah, looking forward to it. But yeah, Tommy, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start with, I guess, with all things. Let's start at the beginning. How did this kind of come about between you and Sam Humphries?
We had some mutual friends, Ryan Stegman and Nick Patera, just, networked in the comic book industry, word of mouth kind of thing. And Sam had sent Ryan an email asking if he knew anybody that could do clean line style similar to Nick. And at the time, we were like Skyping every day. And I was like, well, you know what? I can try it. My other stuff that I just finished Game of Thrones, it's more traditional comic art, I guess. I've always wanted to be a Jim Lee or whatever, so it kind of was looking like that. But I was itching to try something new.
Yeah.
And the Thrones, it's 24 issues, it's one book. I didn't want to break style-wise midway through, even though I was kind of burned out on how I was drawing. Mm-hmm. So I jumped at the opportunity, and Sam sent over some sample pages, and I drew them up, and we agreed that it was compatible.
Was it always kind of planned to come out in election year? Because it really, timing-wise, it doesn't get much better, especially with this election cycle.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't really get much better for Citizen Jack and how it kind of coincides.
Yeah, we had started it in March of 2014, actually. That's when I did those original sample pages. He had a loose framework, everything he wanted to do, and by the end of that year, I'd finished the first issue right at the end of the year, beginning of 2015, and we got a few in the can, and then we surfed around trying to find the right colors, which took a while, but it was planned to come out early, way earlier. It was actually planned to come out before, Trump entered the race, which is obviously the natural comparison.
Yeah.
And we fought that at first, because we were trying to decide how we want to sell the book, pitch it as horror, satire, because politics just scares so many people off.
We live right outside of D.C. We sympathize.
Yeah. Personally, I love it. That's part of the reason. We started out, I don't know if it was in the it was right before we started, but we were talking X-Files, and I'm a conspiracy nut. I'm all into that stuff. It's a long, winding road. I've been into it for 10 years. I was able to do graphic design, and I just listed that stuff all day long, every day. And you go so far in, and you start believing even crazier stuff, and then finally I came out the other end, and I'm a little more reasonable about it now. I was pretty far in for a while, but the nature of the book, it was right up my alley, and we didn't really cover issues, so to speak, like, immigration or gay marriage or any of that stuff. That wasn't covered in Jack. The whole purpose is just the system itself, which, plays to both sides and how crazy it is.
Yeah, and isn't that what politics? At the risk of getting political, but it's a political book, so fuck it. Isn't that what politics is? It isn't about the issues anymore. It's about grandstanding. It's about image.
Yeah, the best way I describe it is it's all theater. Hey, look over here while we do this over there.
Yeah, it's like really entertaining until you realize, wait, one of these people is going to run the country.
I know, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you want to think there's a decent person to pick from, but if you're realistic and you look at it, and you do any reading on the history of anybody, running for office,
Yeah.
it's a sordid past.
Douglas Adams has this great quote that says, "Anyone who wants to be president is immediately disqualified or unqualified to run."
Right. What would make a person want to lead the most powerful nation on earth? You got to be a little messed up to want to do that.
Yeah, I think South Park says in a two-party system, you're picking between a douche and a
Turd
turd sandwich every
yeah.
time.
Yeah, that's the truth.
That's right.
Oh, that's the truth. It's so crazy. And we haven't even gotten to the debates this year yet,
I
which are
know.
going to be bananas.
Talk about theater. That's going to be fucking
God.
out of its mind. That's going to be like a wrestling event. It's going to be like a pay-per-view. It's going to
I
be...
can't even fathom what it's going to be.
Oh,
It's going to be a complete zoo.
it's, yeah,
I
totally.
mean, it kind of already is, right?
Yeah, I know, but once you get those two on stage, though, like
Oh, man.
they're gonna be making posters like it's like the Rocky sequels. You know what I mean? Like Super Fight 2.
So if that's the case, the third one's going to be my favorite?
Yeah,
Guess third party's the way to go.
it might be. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we could get into it and talk it.
Yeah. Let's to go back to the book a bit. Like how much? So how much free agents did you have in like designing guys like Jack or Marlin Spike, or was that something Sam had kind of already kind of conceptualized?
I'd say he had all the ideas in his head, and he expressed them to me. But drawing it as laid out, it took quite a few iterations to get what we wanted. He didn't know exactly what he wanted until he was able to see it on the page. It took us like 20 different designs to figure out Marlin Spike. He was the hardest one.
And then, of course, I mean, it's just there's almost like a bloated quality to Jack, particularly like around like the middle of the book where he's got like all this like literal bile building up. Was that kind of like an intentional visual choice? Because he kind of, I mean, for the most part, a lot of your style really reminds me of Frank Quitely. Actually, there's a lot of kind of that facial structure and that sort of thing going in there. But yeah, I mean,
He was probably the number 2 influence on the style. I mean, he's definitely clean line. Mobius, Frank Quitely, those type artists.
Was Mobius number 1 then for you?
Yeah, probably, because he would do clean line, but he also wasn't scared to get in there and crosshatch. It's all about you avoid spotting blacks as much as possible. Even midway through Jack, I was like, even though Sam wanted the book open line, I started wavering on like how I wanted it to look a little bit. It fluctuated, but I settled in on midway through issue 3, and I think from there on out, the book kind of looked pretty consistent.
Well, which kind of coincides with like Jack like vomiting up all that bile. It's like, okay, well, I guess we're just gonna, because I feel like he doesn't look as bloated anymore after that.
Yeah, that's another thing that goes along with drawing it. You're trying to find like your favorite way or the best way to draw the character, and I wanted him to be absurdly fat, and with so much crazy stuff in the book going on, and Sam's right about this. He wanted Sam to be a little more realistically portrayed as far as like his size, so readers it wouldn't be too bizarre, even though we got a friggin' dolphin in here.
Yes, right.
Was that kind of a welcome change? You had kind of like hinted at as much, because I mean, Game of Thrones obviously very fantasy, Farscape very very sci-fi. I guess the Warriors is just like in weird Brooklyn.
Yeah,
but and parts
I mean, the Warriors thing, I did like an issue and a half of that. It was like I did an interview I don't know, like a couple weeks ago, and somebody brought it up, and I'd actually forgotten that I'd had drawn that. And I'm like still young into my career.
It was issues 4 and 5 for those keeping score at home.
It was fun. I got to draw probably the coolest scenes, right? With him tinking the bottles together.
Oh yeah. That is the best.
It's between that and the baseball Furies, man. Like those are the most iconic things from that film.
Yeah.
But yeah, was kind of drawing out, demonic influence aside, was drawing something more set in the real world kind of a welcome change of pace?
I'll be honest with you. It's hard to talk about books without sound like you're putting one down over the other. So I'm not putting it down. I'm just drawing comparisons and context here. Coming off Game of Thrones, which it was a more detailed style and it made it look like more was going on the page. It wasn't. It was dudes meeting at one wooden table, talking, then they get on their horse and ride to another wooden table and talk. So I did that for 24 issues, right? I'm going out on my... And Jack, even though it's like politics, real world stuff, compared to the pacing of Game of Thrones, it's way more action packed. It's totally different.
Oh yeah. So I mean, but again, was that kind of more? I guess you didn't have to worry about horses or anything. You just had kind of dire wolves, I guess. They're still these.
I got to revisit my wolf drawing abilities. Yeah, that was it's fun drawing those wolves. I like those. The demonic pages were by far the most fun to draw. I tried to pick. It was an oversized book, so as far as pages a month. So I was remotely trying to stay on a monthly schedule, and we had a pretty big lead, even though we ate into that eventually. But yeah, anyway, I try to do 2 or 3 pages per issue, all out, just crazy amount of detail. When readers hit those pages, they're just gonna be like, "Oh yeah, this is fucking cool right here."
Yeah, it's almost like but you have a kind of a tricky balance, right? You've got this comedic, ostensibly comedic political satire, and then it's not as comedic when you realize it's real life, because real life isn't that far off. Yeah. And then you've got the more horror elements. Was that something that you and Sam kind of worked closely in kind of balancing out?
Yeah. Originally, Sam was going to make the TV show kind of You Can't Do That on Television. Do you remember that?
Sure, yeah.
I love that show.
And you say, I don't know, and the slime drops on your head. The TV show was going to be super, super bizarre.
More so than the Dolphin Man?
Yeah, even more so. It was still going to have the dolphin, but they were going to be political games, Dunk the Clown and stuff. It was going to be really bananas, but he decided to tone all that back as to not get too bizarre and to keep it on point. With the message, I guess.
Sure, and of course, the least human of the show is the most logical, but they always just shit on him so hard, every time.
Hey, dude, it's so eerily like everything that's going on. We, like I said, this was started before Trump even entered the race, and we were just, Sam's goal was to point out how they really can take anyone and put them out there and sell them, and people buy into it, right? It's just bananas. And the dolphin, who represents anybody that tries to talk any sense and to point out anything, anytime you try to show logical inconsistencies in political arguments, you're just dismissed. Oh, that's just crazy, right? So the poor dolphin had a hard time of it.
The mighty, the wise dolphin.
Yeah.
Wise beyond his years. So, this collects the first story arc. Without giving the game away, what can we expect in the future for Citizen Jack? Because there hasn't been an official solicitation for a future issue.
Well, there hasn't. Sam has 18 issues worth, plotted out in his head on paper and all that. We'll have to see how the trade does before we justify going further, but we'd very much like to.
Come on, Sam, you got that Green Lantern money. Come on.
Yeah, right.
So
he's got to funnel it back in. He's got to change the world.
Of course. So, Tommy, something we ask everybody that comes on the show, and before we started recording, you kind of hinted at it, but you can totally reiterate. And then we can talk conspiracy theories, because honestly, again, the whole DC thing, we've got some theories we can talk. But what have you currently been geeking out over?
I have been trying to switch over my style into painting, like fully painted art.
Yeah.
So I've been geeking out over Bill Sienkiewicz art, old Simon Beasley, all those books. So I've like went back in time, studying for Zeta and all that. And I'm just like really into that sort of thing.
Are you doing more watercolors or oils?
It's going to be mixed media. We'll see. I'm working on a pitch now with a fellow I met online. We've talked for a few years, and he sent me a story he wanted me to check out and read and give him advice on, and I read it, and I was really impressed, and I liked it enough that I was like, well, after I'm done with Jack, we'll see what we can do. So I'm attempting to switch over and paint, which it's really hard. I overestimated my abilities. I thought I'd be able to pull it off in a few weeks, but that is crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a post-apocalyptic Gen 13 would be the best way to describe it.
Sold. Nice. So you're saying it's fully painted. You're not kind of doing some of the, because sometimes like Alex Ross will paint over pencils, but you're just doing it straight paint from scratch.
It's mixed media. It's everything. So it's going to be like, I'll do a pencil, and I'll ink it, and then I'll use dyes, watercolors, acrylics. Think Sam Keith whenever he goes like super crazy with his stuff.
Sure.
Yeah, Simon Bisley is like one of the coolest, craziest artists I've ever seen.
Didn't he do Judgment in Gotham?
Yeah. The Batman Judge Dredd stuff, some of my favorite stuff I've ever seen. That splash page of Judge Death having the nightmare with all like the cute cuddly things and he's just screaming is like one of my favorite things of all time.
Oh, yes, that page is awesome.
Yeah, it's fantastic. He gives Batman like muscles on top of muscles that don't exist, but like it looks so cool.
It makes it look like the bat suit's the most uncomfortable thing in the world.
It makes it look like the bat suit is his skin, which is like, you know what I mean, the coolest thing.
He's got like muscle wedgies everywhere.
Yeah, and he gets to draw Batman basically recreating the You Gaze into the Fist of Dread, but he's punching Dread's face and like smashing his nose. Yeah, that's just one of my favorite books.
Yeah, so I want to, coming off Thrones and getting to do Jack, which is a little more, I had a little more control over. And, doing this pitch is just going to be, all right, I'm not chained to any one thing. I'm going to draw whatever the fuck I want. I want to make it look cool, right?
Yeah,
sure.
So I'm going to give that a good go. We'll get the pitch out there and see if anybody bites on it. If not, then slave to the grind.
So what was it that really influenced you to go art? Because, I mean, obviously you went clean lines with this one is kind of a change, and now you're kind of changing up again. Was there any kind of like inciting thing that was like, I'm gonna try paint?
Yeah, kind of like what I just said. I want to be able to do whatever I want to do. If a page calls for, me grabbing up nuts and bolts and gluing them onto the page from around the house, and I'll do that. I want total creative freedom. And it's not that I'm going to settle on, that sort of painted look or whatever, I may go back into traditional pen and ink. But my stuff was so unoriginal. I'm trying to find myself, basically, And so I'm hoping, like, going and doing the painting thing, I'll be able to pull some things over into a more traditional style that no one else is doing. Maybe I can find a cool way to render, backgrounds or something. I'm trying to find something to separate myself.
That's awesome.
I look around comics and, there's a handful of guys that stand out, and I want that,
Yeah, and I mean, like you were saying, you're kind of young into your professional comic career. This definitely would diversify the portfolio quite a bit.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And who knows, I might eventually get good at it.
Practice, man, practice.
Yeah.
That's how you get in the Carnegie Hall. So anything outside of comics that you're really kind of riffing on, vibing on?
Just keeping up with politics, even though they drive me crazy,
Yeah, I remember it got to a point watching like The Daily Show. For some reason, under Trevor Noah, like The Daily Show feels like oddly irrelevant this election cycle. But I remember like when Jon Stewart was hosting, you would laugh at a lot of those jokes when he was covering elections, but those laughs would come from like a place of pain because you would know it was real.
Right. Yeah, the internet it's changed things up a lot. But there's like that point of too much information, so you can still have a lot of the same problems. Like there's almost no way to verify what you're being fed. So what you can do is take, all these official documents that they put out, all the official press releases, and you can go through them and, use the 42 logical fallacies and find out, where the flaws are. And it turns out it's all garbage. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know that I don't have any solutions. Like getting into the conspiracy stuff and learning about it, and once you cut away all the insane stuff out of that, the lizard people and all that stuff. There is a lot of
Speak for yourself. That's insane.
yeah. There's a lot of vibrations. There's a lot of good ideas out there. Like you learn the books that these people are reading. The leaders of the free world, they read a specific set of books. Then there's another specific set of books that they've written, and there's a clear arc on what they want to do.
No, continue. I was gonna say, like, what I mean. Here's my most. I just got okay. This is the conspiracy theory I vibe on the most. Just to kind of go back on that thread. Who killed Kennedy?
If you look at his speech that he gave on secret societies, I think the answer is kind of clear. I think that the FBI and the CIA, there was a coup within that kind of usurped our own elected officials. And with so much money, like the day before 9/11, Rumsfeld mentions like there's $1 trillion missing,
Right.
And if you read stuff like Ayn Rand and what she said, that there'll come a point where there'll be a breakaway society kind of thing. Well, I think that's kind of what they've done. They, we're kind of cattle to them, and they're just getting us to go from one way to the other. Meanwhile, they're like siphoning our resource. We're human resources to them, basically.
Kind of
kind of bleak way to look at it, but yeah. So who killed Kennedy? Clearly the CIA. They wanted him out of there. He thought he had like real power because he was elected.
Well, I mean, the things that right before Kennedy takes office, Eisenhower warns against the military-industrial, complex, which essentially, yeah, basically, because he refuses to escalate Vietnam, which is the exact first thing that Johnson does when he takes office right after. Of course, Jack Ruby killing Lee Harvey Oswald ostensibly to keep him quiet. I'm not the biggest conspiracy theorist guy, and maybe it's because I watched JFK. I don't know. Though there's some fallacies in Oliver Stone's JFK.
Yeah, there's some fantasy to it.
Yeah. That aside, like even couched by Kevin Costner, I kind of but no, that's always for me. I personally think we landed on the moon. There's a lot of stuff that I totally will take at face value, but the Kennedy assassination and the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert Kennedy are always the things where I'm kind of like, there's something like the.
Well, it doesn't pass the smell test, right?
Yeah.
So. You try to look at these things with as much logic as possible, but like your own body, like you can read some stories, and your gut is just telling you, something is off here, something's wrong with this. If you got, I don't, you can like edit this part out or whatever. But if you guys want to have some fun, you were talking about the moon landing. You think that we landed on the moon?
I do.
Yeah, I'm not saying we didn't, but I'm just saying go to Google right now. Do this with me.
Okay.
And type in moonland.
All right.
Or actually, I can send you the link.
Okay.
All right.
You got the email, or you can.
Yeah, we're on Skype.
I can do Skype.
Yeah.
This is going to be hilarious.
Is it the waving flag? Because wasn't it wired to wave?
Oh, this isn't that. There we go. Now, I'm not saying we haven't been to the moon. I think it's the whole breakaway society thing I kind of mentioned, which it sounds a little too extreme. to say that sort of thing, but I do think that's the case. I think we went to the moon, but I don't think we went to the moon in what I just said.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? I know that thing landed on there. I know that's not the rocket that boosted us up there. But just pull up the image of the moon landing.
Yeah, so what we're looking at is a picture of the actual lunar lander.
The lunar lander.
Yeah.
And look, I'm not a rocket scientist yet. Just kidding. I just don't see any way that piece of shit was on the moon, dude. That is the biggest fucking jalopy I've ever seen in my life. Look at it. It looks like poster board on the side. You got like a door stopper there. You got a few bullhorns on it. That's pretty cool.
And and it's all like wrapped in tinfoil.
Yeah, you got Easter paper on it.
Yeah.
I mean, if diamonds are forever is to be believed, the moon landing was faked in a warehouse in Nevada.
If Capricorn.
Well, I mean, it was mentioned again in Interstellar.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that it was just like a propaganda thing because we had to, show that we beat the Russians there and all that.
Yeah, especially after Kennedy's promise, like by the end of this decade, we will land a man on the moon.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, the Russians are actually the main reason why I believe we did go to the moon, because as much as like all of the Americans were following the space race, the Russians would have been following us and scrutinizing every step of the way that we went. Even more than any Americans. So like I feel like if there was any evidence at the time that we had faked the moon landing, they would have been the first ones to be like, no, that's a bunch of bullshit. They're not on the moon right now. They're in a like who knows how much.
You say if I said that they were faking their shit too though, so
yeah,
like who's gonna call BS on it? And they both want to. They both have an authority and they're building myths. Yeah. About how powerful the government is, and why would either one shoot down the other to that extreme? It's like a political version of mutually assured destruction. If that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, that's just like one, argument against what you're saying.
Right.
Not that it's the case. Like, I mean, this thing here may very well have landed on the moon. I don't know, but I'm just saying, looking at it, it looks like 1950s cheap sci-fi robot bullshit.
Yeah. Forbidden Planet.
Yeah, I mean. I pull it up every now and again and look at it, just laugh.
just to be like, this bullshit.
Yeah. You're like, man, this panel's not coming out right. Let me pull up the moon landing. All right, life's a little better now.
These sheeple.
Look at those sheets of metal on the side. I mean, like one of them's like buckled out, not even sealed up. What the hell is going on? Anyway, I find that stuff fun. Like, you can talk the moon landing conspiracy without pissing a bunch of people off.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's some, I mean, my father is a very much like I am too, very much like a space geek. But, like, you even kind of hint that the moon landing was faked. And he's like, what? He just, like, you could see the turn, like, what the hell are you talking about? Of course we landed on the moon.
Buzz Aldrin would knock your ass out.
I was about to bring that up just right after you said it. He actually decked a guy that was like, why don't you come clean about the faking the moon landing? He was just like, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, he's like, put your hand on the Bible, and Buzz is like, I'll put my hand on your face, bro.
Gave him a good old Steranko.
Yeah.
The Steranko slap.
The conspiracy thing, like I made it out the other end, and I do think one thing that I will say about it is I don't know how much control the government actually has, or the elites, whatever the fuck you want to call them. Mm-hmm. But I've also come to the realization that they probably enjoy a lot of this conspiracy stuff because it's myth building on them and making them seem more powerful.
Yeah.
It's also,
if you got like these guys out there saying it's a global conspiracy, you can't stop it.
I mean, it's also misdirection, right?
Right. Yeah. We're like the conspiracy guys. A lot of them are doing the work for them.
I mean, for me, the biggest argument against a lot of these conspiracy theories is, my father was a Govey. A lot of our, family and friends are Goveys. We know abstractly how competent the federal government is. And it's not as competent as we would maybe like.
That's all the that's the smoke and mirrors. That's the false front.
I think reading into it, and some of my own thinking on that is they're trying to solve every problem 3,000 miles away, and I think they gotta let people solve these problems more locally.
Yeah, kind of looking within ourselves instead of trying to overextend.
Right. Take care of your own health first.
Yeah.
And the government, it's so big and cumbersome now. I don't know what to do, and everybody's like trying to get something over on everyone else,
Yeah. It's kind of what killed Jimmy Carter in the, I guess, 1980, 1979, 1980 election, because he kind of, micromanaged and overextended himself, and then Reagan was just like, hey, we're just going to keep it in here in the USA, partner, and, it worked out for him.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the Republicans are calling for smaller government, which I kind of agree with that part of it, but you can have maybe just the same size government broken into smaller pieces, which is like kind of what it's supposed to be, but it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It's all middlemen wanting cuts, Everybody wants their cut.
I mean, that's true outside of politics. That's just I think a human thing, though.
Right. You get to thinking about these things, and it's just like, think about 20 people, How many of those 20 would you actually babysit your kid, Not very many.
Depends on how much I like my kid.
Right. So, you got police or teachers or, priests, and then government officials. Well, guess what? They don't get super awesome powers to do good and never do bad things just because they get those jobs. They're people too. They're fuck ups just like the rest of us.
Yeah. That's
is a somber note right there.
Well, let's.
Well, it's been fun.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of a way to kind of
lighten the mood.
Yeah, I was gonna say like Bloodlines. I'm like, that's like a really like tense like drama, isn't it? Huh.
That's dark too.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm on like my 5th rewatch of Frasier. Yeah. That's about as happy as it can get.
Yeah, I'm still scrub strong.
Yeah.
You got to get a real dolphin on TV that'll liven things up.
Oh, I would totally. If Flipper was back on TV and talking like Crossfire, I would be all about it. He would do better than the. What's the happiest, funniest thing I've done lately? Listen to "You Can Call Me Al" by Paul Simon. That was pretty good. Yeah. But Tommy, what can you were kind of hinting at this pitch. Are you working on anything else outside of? I mean, because there's. Again, we haven't seen like a solicitation for issue 7 of Citizen Jack. Obviously, you've got the pitch coming. Is there anything you've got coming in the interim?
No. I'm going to finish the pitch, which will be, within a couple of weeks. Now I'm just going to hunt down some work in the meantime. I'll wait for editors to get back to me.
Sure. Are you going to be at San Diego in a couple weeks?
Oh, Lord, no. I couldn't afford that.
Fair enough. It's I mean, if we're talking circuses, that's a circus in and of itself.
Yeah, I went to New York a couple of years in a row, and the last year it was like 2012, I think was the last year, maybe 2011, and it was like getting to that point to where they were saying it's approaching San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And I came home a broken man. It was too much for me.
1,000-yard stare.
Yeah, I want to say last year it like just about like equaled or theoretically surpassed San Diego Comic-Con in certain aspects.
Yeah, it's just so much traffic. And for whatever reason, it's all on me. I'm just like terrible at cons. I don't do well at cons.
Well, I was talking. Who was it? It was Chip Zdarsky was saying like, comics is a very kind of like insular thing. Work like on the day to day when, especially as like an artist, where you're just kind of like drawing, doing pages and whatever, and then suddenly like you have these like massive like the height of like what should be like social interaction, like just like a pure overload, like a night and day difference. And he was like, that can really throw you out of sync.
Yeah, there are a lot of people like that. I'm pretty good at cons as far as like socializing and talking with fans and stuff. Just because usually Skype with people and stuff during the day, so we're always talking and carrying on and cutting up. So we keep I'm a pretty social comic. I draw when I talk and all that stuff. So, but yeah, a lot of guys don't. I mean, I know a few artists. I'm not going to name their names. That they won't even listen to music or TV or anything. They just sit there and draw.
God, it sounds like a monk.
Artistic isolationists.
Yes, it's so bizarre. I'd go crazy. I'd definitely go crazy.
I mean, shoot, even if I'm just doing something simple as like writing emails and something, I need like some sort of white noise. I need music or the news or something on in the background.
Yeah. I always have something going when I'm doing graphic design.
Yeah, you have to.
Just the silence, man. The sound of silence.
It's no good.
I know you have it like on the podcast here, like the last few minutes when we're slowing down, just a little bit of silence. You start like scratching and looking around.
But yeah, to kind of to take us out, Tommy. I mean, obviously, there's a big pivotal moment at the end of this arc, which is in comic shops everywhere and on Comixology on August 3rd. What can you kind of like hint at for issue 7? Like, I don't know how much like Sam is kind of like you were saying he's got the 18 issues out beyond this initial arc. What can we expect now that Jack is at this big crossroads?
Oh, geez, I'd have to make something up on the spot. I really don't know, like, other than, the usual shenanigans that actual presidents go through whenever they're in office. I mean, there's plenty of real life material to mine from, so it would go in that direction with, Marlon Spike maybe probably pulling the strings.
As he is wont to do.
Yeah.
Right on it.
Gotcha. So it'll just be the West Wing. Got it.
Yeah, it's the West Wing.
Dibs on Rob Lowe. Yeah, well, Tommy, thanks for joining us. And again, Citizen Jack in comic book shops everywhere on August 3rd. Tommy, thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I had fun. Oh, and it hits comic book stores August 3rd and bookstores on the 9th.
Oh.
There you have it.
On.
There you go. I looked it up. I Googled it.
The wonders of the internet.
Yeah. Google knows more about me than I know.
Oh, let's not get existential.
But he's back into the conspiracy again. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, no problem. Oh, it's a great interview.
Of course, yeah.
Of course, I don't know. There's always something kind of cool talking like conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Like, this kind of like this you think you know. You think you know.
You think you know.
But you haven't got a clue.
Yeah. And
you think you know, but you have no idea.
Yeah,
This is true life.
I was actually at the Air and Space Museum last week while I was working on like a lot of housing stuff, and I just was like, I just need the fucking day to myself. So I just went, took the day off, went to the mall, and I saw like the lunar lander and stuff, and I was like,
this is fake. Didn't make it to the moon.
But yeah, well, the pictures in the episode description if you want to see what we were kind of going over with Tommy about. Of course, weigh in yourself and don't be afraid to ask the right questions.
Ooh.
You can ask some of the wrong questions too. I don't really give a shit. But yeah, so yeah, thanks again, Tommy. The book Citizen Jack in comic book shops now and on Comixology now. So yeah, definitely check that out. You guys got anything going on this week?
We saw some films.
We did. We saw some
Dafoes.
Some Willem Dafoes.
I fell asleep during both of them.
Yes, you did.
I'm officially becoming my father's son. And I know
it's about time.
Well, it wasn't just because like I fell asleep during a movie. By the way, the first one we're going to talk about is Star Trek Beyond. We can add some insight along that Chris and Josh did last week. But it wasn't just falling asleep. It was I would always get on my dad's case because I'd look at my dad, and my dad is like, we're watching a movie, he's like struggling to stay awake, and I'm like, Dad, you just make a decision. I'm going to sleep now, and you go to sleep. The sleep that I had in both these films was like, I'm shutting down. Like I couldn't control my eyes. Like they got like really heavy, and I didn't want to fall asleep, and I fell asleep. It was kind of nerve wracking.
That was like me when we watched that Lucha.
Oh
movie.
yeah, I could have fallen asleep. Yeah,
conked right out.
But I mean, I unfortunately, I didn't hate Star Trek Beyond. I didn't really love Star Trek Beyond, but I there's going to be some things you guys might talk about that I totally didn't see. So
yeah, that might be why you didn't like it.
Yeah, maybe. But I know. Look, I like the cast. I like the
I've always liked the cast.
Yeah, the cast is solid. You know. Again, from a non-Star Trek guy, I'm sick of seeing the Enterprise blow up.
Well, to be
that's like me in New York.
Yeah.
I mean, the Enterprise doesn't blow up. It gets pretty fucked up in Star Trek Into Darkness, but it only blows up in Star Trek Generations, and doesn't. It just crashes. And what's the other one? Search for Spock. Blows up.
It feels like it blows up in every movie. But either way, I'm sick of it. But I thought I like the I'm terrible with the names, of course, but the kick-ass alien that they get to work with them.
J. Law.
Yeah,
I think.
Played by
Jennifer Lawrence.
Sophia Botella.
Yeah, she was
She
cool.
did an
I thought
amazing
she
job.
was
I loved
really,
her.
really good.
There's one scene where she's in the middle of like a fight and she just randomly goes, "Ah!"
Oh yeah, you laughed at that.
and nobody else did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
was
laughed at my
packed.
screening. So
It was fucking packed too.
It was we had to resort to dick blow off
dick
seats.
blow off seats. We're gonna leave it at that. But
Yeah, you don't get the context.
Yeah, we did it a long time ago. I think it was.
I have
Skyfall or
enough
something.
context here in
Yeah.
my brain.
Well, I just sent Sam a text because he was using the restroom, and I was like, "It's packed." I was like, "I'm at the dick blow off seat. It's packed."
I knew exactly where to go.
That's right. But I don't know. I thought it was fine.
It was okay. It's kind of a weird, kind of almost off kilter, like very self-contained, and it's a much leaner, less epic scope. I feel like.
Yeah, and I can see where I've heard people say it feels like the original in the sense like it feels like an episode.
Okay,
You know,
like an episode.
Yeah, like an episode. Like they crash land on a planet that looks like every planet ever, and then they save the day.
Where all the rocks look like they're made of styrofoam.
Yeah, when Simon Pegg picks that one up.
or it's that one mountain range in
the
the rocks.
But,
the Vasquez rocks.
Yeah, those ones.
And again, spoilers for the movie, but actually this is even a spoiler. Everyone knows this is coming with the Beastie Boys song. Sabotage. Like everyone knew it was coming.
Yeah,
but like even though we all knew it was coming, and we're all like enough of this thing. When it happened, I still loved it. Like
Yeah.
I actually really loved that scene.
and then
Did you
the,
like that
the,
they
the
played-
surfing Enterprise.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Did you like?
Or no, not the Enterprise. The whatever ship they were in, but it was surfing on the.
Yeah. My favorite part is when like I don't know what the line leading up to is. They're like, let's fuck fucking ass, and then like all of a sudden they go, yeah, and, like the explosion happens. That was my favorite part of the movie. Whoa! That was the best part, and everyone in the theater seemed to have a really good time watching it.
Yeah.
So,
Did you like Fight the Power?
Yeah.
oh yeah, that's right.
Get some Public Enemy in there.
Yeah,
Fight the
yeah,
power.
that's right. She listens to that on the and they always refer to as classical music. That's so funny.
Yeah.
But Sam, you're more a Star Trek guy.
These aren't. I've always had a complicated relationship with like the Abrams verse films. They're all entertaining. They're not like poorly put together. Though I will say, for some reason, the visual effects on this are like the worst out of the three. And it's like, how do you get worse over time?
And also, Idris Elba was like, I think you were saying too little, too late with his motivation, right?
Yeah, they try to keep it in the dark too long.
I do remember feeling that. Like once they revealed it, I was like, oh.
And then he conveniently gets like a gold like Starfleet shirt and like looks more like Idris Elba.
Or
Yeah.
Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
There's that one scene at the end. Again, spoilers, but why should you care?
It's the worst.
Like
It's the
he
worst
sees
scene.
his reflection in like the broken
The
glass, and
glass.
he's like, oh.
Yeah, and you're like, he's gonna turn a new leaf. And he's like, "Blah," and it's just that scene of like this, like just the glass. He sees himself.
The
He's
poor
like,
CGI glass going.
yeah, you're right. The CG looked. I mean, the space stuff looked pretty good.
Yeah, and the Yorktown space station looks fine.
Yeah, but yeah, the stuff like on land was like very weird.
And the prologue, which is like the worst
Oh,
prologue ever,
terrible.
with like the weird pint-sized things.
Terrible.
And it's just like, why do you look like you belong from like an adaptation of Gargoyles?
Yeah, that was really weird.
Yeah. It's humor, guys.
It's
humor. But no, I mean, it's...
Hey, people love it when the Star Trek movies get funny. Those are the best ones.
I love 4. Man. Yeah. But, it's just... It feels almost kind of subdued this time around as a whole.
Does.
But
It
I like
does.
the character moments a lot in this film.
Yeah, I don't like all in all. I still said that it's my favorite out of the Abrams verse. Now, granted,
Okay.
we haven't yet recorded our commentary for the 2009, which is the one that has been the longest since I've seen it. So I might revise that statement once I rewatch 2009 Star Trek. But definitely, I came out of it being like, I liked that one better than Into Darkness for sure.
It took it. Yeah, it was its own story.
Yeah,
I
think that's
nice.
I think that's what I loved about it. That it was like it was self-contained. It had that tearjerk moment with that Batman versus Superman. Like, I'm now older than my dad ever was.
Yeah, and of course all the Spock dealing with the death of
Yep.
Spock Prime.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that was well played. There's a great shot of him just looking up into space, like the little you could just see the blue shirt of him kind of looking up, and the way they dealt with that. I remember though, it was interesting. Sam and I have seen a shit ton of movies together, and usually when the movie's over, we turn to each other, and usually I'm the one who's like, I don't know what to think, and Sam has something to say. I think this was the first time ever I turned to you, and you were like, I don't know what to think.
Yeah, I don't know.
I've never seen you like that before. But
Like, I didn't have a bad time. I just had a time.
I was just like, oh my god, I fell asleep in a fucking movie. Only other time that that had happened was during The Constant Gardener, and that was because I was
just constantly gardening.
It's so much gardening, man. I was in military school, and we did this big march into town in Wayne, Pennsylvania, where Bruce Wayne gets his last name from, and they allowed us. There was like 2 movies they let us see for free because we marched in the town, did this big parade thing, and one of them was The Constant Gardener. I was like, I love Ray Fiennes, and I just slept through the whole thing.
Do you remember what the other option was?
I feel like it was a kids movie, but I can't remember what it was.
Mars Needs Moms.
If that was out during Constant Gardener, maybe, I don't know. But this would have been like 2005 or 6 or something. Anyway, 2006. But let's talk about the next one we saw.
Yeah.
And I fell asleep during this one too. And I remember before, and this is the next day, like before the movie started, I was like, kind of laughing. I hope I don't fall asleep again. And I did. And I fell asleep longer during this. So hopefully during Suicide Squad, I'm not out during the whole fucking movie. But
well, you can get coffee at the Alamo Draft
that's true,
House.
yeah. And I think it's just because
French press.
I think it's just because of Sam and I are back from San Diego, getting in the work week. I don't know what it is.
It's wild. Like, at the time we're recording this, we haven't even been back for a full week.
I know. I hope that's
feels
it.
like it's been ages.
Yeah, I know. It did last year too. Actually, anytime there's a trip, like when we did Seattle, I'm sure when you did the LA thing too. But I hope this isn't a reoccurring thing, man, because I don't like fall asleep during movies. But during Jason Bourne, the movie itself is a nothing.
It is the Death Magnetic of Jason Bourne movies, which is to say, it's like when one of your favorite bands puts out an album years past their prime.
Yeah.
It's not a bad album per se, unless it's like Saint Anger.
I mean, like it's got its highlights. Like some people may
Saint Anger is the Death Magnetic.
the Saint Anger films. It's got it's got highlights. Like, let's say, here's something nerdy. Let's bring it all together. Like, Act 3 of this movie for me is like the Unforgiven 3 on that track. Fucking great. Like, I love it.
Yeah.
I loved it. Like, that's what I wanted from the Bourne movie. It ticks all the checks of a great Bourne movie. The final fight between him and the Asset is brutal as shit. Like, I would say one of the most brutal fights in the 5 films that there are.
And I do like that Vincent Cassel, I mean, all the Bourne movies are basically filled with like strong silent types that look vaguely pissed off the entire time.
They give him a good reason.
But Vincent Cassel is probably the most fleshed out Bourne antagonist.
And it kind of there's a continuity with 3, which is interesting. Like his
you kind of have to, because 3,
but his character,
yeah.
the reason for the Asset being pissed.
3 kind of neatly tied a bow on everything, so it's like, well, how do you
stayed that way?
Yeah, no, totally, yeah.
Because he knows his name.
Yeah. But
David Webb.
Basically, look, if you're watching the movie, I'm interested to hear what my dad says, because that dude is a fucking expert on the Bourne movies and the books. But like, I think he'll like it. But I told him the same kind of thing. I was like, look, Act 1, I was pretty much out for most of it, and then Act 2, I don't remember what happens, and then Act 3 is this is the worst review ever. Act 3 is like I said, the Vegas stuff is just great. Like that's what I wanted. I wish that was the whole movie.
Yeah.
It was that was a lot of fun. And look, at the end of the day, Damon still rocks it as Bourne. Like, I like seeing Bourne.
It's like, okay, again, let's say the Stones are going back into the recording studio.
Okay.
Do you give a shit about the Stones going back into the recording studio? No, but it's like, oh, this is new. It's not bad music.
Yeah.
It just doesn't need to exist, and 2, like there's moments on, like, say, band records past their prime where you're like, oh, this is why I love this band in the first place. But it's more because it's kind of riffing on. It's like it's coming from a place of familiarity, not like innovation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, okay, you're just kind of like recycling the hits.
30 years ago, this would have been an amazing album, but because you already put this album out 30 years ago.
Yeah. It's not a bad film. It just doesn't need to exist.
Yeah.
Having said that, though, I'm still like, if there was like another Matt Damon
it,
Bourne, I would peek over that fence.
See, I've never been too enthralled with the Bourne movies. Like, even when the first one came out, I was like, oh, okay, cool, that was a solid movie. I mean, I've always been very much against the quote unquote shaky cam.
Oh, that's
that,
there, buddy.
I've
big
heard
time.
That was around before Jason Bourne, but like it really hit its peak with the Bourne series.
It
and
almost
then
became ubiquitous with it.
Yeah, and then that sparked a whole trend in other movies, and like, but I don't think that was like the most off-putting thing with it for me. Like, I think it just, for me, I was always very confused with the convoluted storyline, and then like I don't know, looking back now that another one's come out and like the whole big thing is like he knows who he is now, and I'm like, didn't he find out who he was in the second one?
I will say,
Yeah.
I will say that I did like the addition of like the father, and there's like that tragic element of like why not. There's a rationale to like you find out David Webb, but him spoilers for him joining this program is kind of the reason why his father was killed in the first place. And I thought that was an interesting thing that kind of puts it more of like a tragic side on Jason Bourne / David Webb.
Yeah, it also makes it more personal, but wasn't it always personal?
Yeah, no, it definitely was.
This
but
time
I mean,
it's even more personal.
But it was, yeah. But again, it's personal for him. But the fact that he realizes that the reason his dad is dead is pretty much.
It's like
he didn't pull the trigger. Or
It's the
set
Bruce Wayne
explosive off.
subplot in Batman Forever, which I wish they spent more time on.
Oh
as
yeah,
I
check
said
that
on
out on our commentaries. For
Yeah.
that. Or yeah,
But
but
check the deleted scenes.
yeah. Well, we talk about it, I guess extensively
Yeah.
on the thing. That whole commentary, we're like, I wish it was this.
Yeah.
But I will say there is a
Not so much potential.
there is a
Goldsmith.
there is a I thought they were going a certain way at the end of the movie because I was like, they're not going to just do the same fucking thing, are they? And of course they do. But I thought they were going to go towards more of like the government aspect, where like, it wouldn't make any sense for Bourne to like go back into the system with the government.
Yeah.
But it would be kind of cool if the next one was him like just going out and just like he's not fucking doing the same thing, saying acid over and over again, like they said in the Honest trailers and everything else. Just having him like go on a mission, that'd be cool to see.
Yeah.
But of course they don't do that. And they had the
Got Moby.
yeah, they do like a remix of it. I feel like though.
Every film has a remix
Do they?
of Extreme
Okay.
Ways. Yeah.
Okay, but look, do you want to see him, punch people and take the gun out of their hand really fast? You got it. You want to see him beat somebody with an object that you wouldn't normally see someone get beat with? You got it.
Alicia Vikander. Awesome.
Oh, she's good.
She's great.
She's good.
In a world of people that are basically kind of like not really fleshed out that much, she's like the best.
The most violent scene is involving Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah, remember he's like, Jason, do you remember me? And it's like, no, you were conveniently created for this film, so none of us
like
know.
yeah, like all the characters that it added in the sequels.
Yeah, they didn't even add you to the flashback scene, so I have no idea what you're talking about.
But yeah, that's
He just acts like he's reading off cue cards the entire time.
Yeah,
He might be.
Yeah, probably.
He he just seems like he's kind of there. But and we all love Tommy Lee Jones, but
Yeah.
there's a difference between this Tommy Lee Jones and like Captain America: First Avenger Tommy Lee Jones, where he seems like he's having fun in that.
Yeah.
He's also eating like steak and stuff in that movie.
Mm.
But
That's how they got him.
so they got him.
You mean I get free steak? All right, I'll be in this.
milk. Oh, but
How'd they get him in Man of the House?
oh, that's just the Dynamite script. It all starts with the script. Isn't that what they always say? If it's a good script, I'll do anything. But yeah, those are the two movies we saw.
I've been mostly just watching things on Netflix. I decided to now that we're getting close to wrapping up our Star Trek commentary series, I was like, you know what? This entire time I've been talking about giving Next Generation another chance. I'm going to do it. And I took Sam's advice, and I just started fresh at the Season 3 premiere. So kind of just forgetting the last, I don't know, probably 10 episodes of Season 2 that I haven't seen. And I got to say, I've been enjoying Season 3. It's pretty good, and it's very much what I expect from
Have the
Star
Borg
Trek.
shown up yet?
Not yet.
We saw Borg in San Diego, didn't we?
Ooh. No.
We also saw John Romita Jr. or Sam did.
Ooh. No.
Anyway.
I've gotten to the Q episode of Season 3, because you can't have a season of The Next Generation without Q popping up at least once. Which is fine because I love Q. And I posted this on Facebook, and now that I have a microphone in front of me, I'm going to go ahead and add it here. I ended up rewatching the Q episodes from the first couple seasons, and watching these makes me kind of sad that Q never showed up in the movies.
There was talk about it, but it never quite gelled.
Isn't he in Breaking Bad?
Yeah, he plays what's her name?
Jessica Jones.
Kristen Ritter's
Kristen Ritter.
character.
He plays Jessica Jones
Yeah.
in Breaking
He
Bad.
wears the leather jacket and the scarf.
Yeah.
Fights David Tennant.
Speaking of Jessica Jones, this is an awful segue, but last episode we talked about seeing the Winona Earp cast at San Diego.
Yeah.
And I had confessed my undying love to not to her, but
To her Twitter.
to basically the whole cast of Winona Earp. And I was like, I'm gonna watch that show. Anyway, she's got a very Jessica Jones thing, very Kristen. Her and Kristen Ritter have a very kind of like that show's
Similar vibe.
super sassy. Yeah, like sassy, like got a Buffy vibe from the little bit of Buffy I've watched. But it's a really fun show. Like I guess it only has season 1 right now and got picked up for a 10-episode second season, which is cool. But that's the show I've been burning through right now. About 10 episodes deep, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I love Wyatt Earp and the legend of all that kind of stuff. And this one deals with the great granddaughter of Wyatt Earp. Yeah, even though Wyatt Earp didn't have any kids, but it's fun. It's
that you know of.
That's but no, it's cool. I mean, like you just got super sassy female chicks shooting people in the head.
Nice.
There you go. That's the official Western Buffy,
Jake
basically.
Bozek.
Yeah, but no, it's really fun. I'm enjoying the hell out of it because I haven't really had a show that I've been kind of binging on in a while. I've just been rewatching, Frasier and Scrubs and all these other shows. So it's nice to like sit there and watch a show. And I'm definitely Stranger Things is the next thing I'm going to be starting up.
Yeah, I was just about to say like I've also been catching like 1 or 2 episodes here and there of Stranger Things. I almost intentionally haven't binged it because I kind of wanted to have that classic feel of only watching 1 episode at a time. That, and also I watched the first episode of Stranger Things and it didn't quite hook me right away, so I sat on it, let it
Just sit on Stranger Things. Get out of here.
But no, kind of let it sit there, let it digest. And one of the guys that I work with was like, "Oh, well, you gotta at least watch the first 3 episodes." And I'm gonna agree with him. I'm gonna throw this out there for anyone that hasn't checked it out yet. Watch the first 3 episodes and let that be the deciding factor of whether you watch the whole season, because they might not get you on the first episode like they kind of didn't get me, but by the 3rd episode, things happen within the 3rd episode that are so fucking metal that I was just like, yes, want this. So and now I'm about a little bit past halfway through the whole season because it's only 8 or 10 episodes long, something like that, and I'm about halfway through, and it's pretty good.
Pretty sweet, man. Sweet, man.
It's and what's great is that it's set in the 80s, so there's a lot of 80s things in it that pop around, but it's not so oh, look at this 80s thing, look at that, kind of what a lot of things that try to be
Turbo Kid.
Yeah.
Do you
things that just try to be nostalgic. Well, the Turbo Kid just kind of had an 80s flair to it.
Yeah,
but it wasn't
still, I mean, it wasn't as check this shit out.
Look at this.
It wasn't remember this. But it wasn't Ready Player One, where it was just hey, look, this is a reference to the 80s. I need to tell you about the this for a whole minute. It's just oh, that was there because it was in the 80s, and this is in the 80s. It makes sense, and it just lets it go.
Good guys always win,
even in the 80s.
Oh, I do want to say real quick too, just because we had him on, one of my favorite moments in Geek Out history, Mr. Lehman, when we had him on, he told us that he was going to be doing Predator vs. Judge Dredd vs. Aliens. Oh, I read the first issue just to give you guys. It's the fucking bee's knees. It's done in a really interesting way, not what you thought. I thought how it would start out or where it's going. But it's a lot of fun, and that dude knows how to write some Judge Dredd.
Well done, Johnny.
Yes. So that, like I said, he's
already finished every single script.
Yeah, no,
I was talking to him.
That's gonna be a wait out. Just waiting for it to come out.
See if we can get him back on to talk about it.
I probably can.
Yeah.
And I do have review copies of because Dark Horse sends me everything, and I'm like, should I say this? Well, we're not posting a Dark Horse interview, so they're not going to listen to this. Yeah. Dark Horse sends me everything to review, so
Sweet.
I do have a copy of Judge Dredd vs. Aliens vs. Predator.
Check it out, man. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. No,
Big fan of the art too.
Yeah.
The artist's name is slipping my mind, but
okay.
It's
okay.
The art's really solid, and I'm really digging the way he draws Judge Dredd. Okay.
Yeah, but no, I was talking to John at San Diego, and I was just like, "Hey, man, how does it feel to wrap up Chew?" And he's like, "Technically, I already have all the scripts are in. He's finished every book he has coming out for the rest of this calendar year. He's already turning the final scripts in."
Did you tell him that we were the idiots on the show that were like, "Oh," and then he went, "Okay."
Yeah.
Oh, okay then.
He wasn't there that long, and he didn't have any signings with him.
Did I tell you about how I was at the corner? We were cleaning up at the end of the day, and I was just talking to one of the people we were working with, and I just kept going, "Okay, okay," over and over again. And there were like two girls standing next to me. I don't think they had any idea that I was working for Image, and they were like, "Why is this person saying okay,
That's a different one.
okay over and over again?" So, but
Oh, well, good thing I didn't say that.
Yeah.
I did some research to find who the illustrator was. And
Oh,
apparently
yeah,
I
well,
clicked the wrong one.
yeah, there's a hardcover that deals with Judge Dredd versus Predators and Judge Dredd versus Aliens. The cool thing about the Judge Dredd versus Predators thing is that the side judge who gets assigned to the case is a descendant of Dutch from the Predator, which is kind of cool. I was like, wait, what's his name again? I'm thinking of all the different names of the people. Not Matrix,
Yeah,
Dutch.
not Billy.
Yeah. So
Billy, you ain't
here we
afraid of
go.
him, man.
Chris Mooneyham.
do it.
Right on.
Does that sound
hey,
right? Does that sound
Hey,
right?
man.
I
There are
do good.
do good. There are two characters that if you draw professionally, you are in my circle of favorite people of all time. Dredd and Superman. So welcome to the circle.
What about
It's
Snake
a
Eyes?
pretty metal cover
Snake
here.
Eyes is pretty
got
fucking metal.
Dredd with the alien and Predator.
You know what the
in
next
his
one's going to
visor.
be? It's a xenomorph, and its reflection is Dredd and the Predator.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing the one after that's going to be the Predator.
I'll talk to John, see if I can get him back on.
It's really fun, and they're digging it. They're digging it.
Yeah. He was good hang.
Yeah.
But yeah, so definitely check out Citizen Jack in comic book shops everywhere and on Comixology today. Thanks again to Tommy Patterson for coming on the show, geeking out and trading notes on the conspiracy theories. Do you like the film Conspiracy Theory?
Actually, I don't.
Okay.
As much as I love Mel Gibson, I do love Mel Gibson, and I don't hate it, but it's not what I thought. Yeah, it's got kind of like a Bourne thing. It's okay. It's fine. That's the movie where Mel Gibson sent Julia Roberts like stuffed dead
rats.
Like, mess
rats
with her, right?
Yeah, but he like posed them, I think, in like different things just to fuck with her.
Dinner with Idiots?
Yeah. I think so, yeah.
All we are is dust in the wind.
Yeah. Well, there you
Or what is it? No, you may call me you may say that I'm a dreamer.
But I'm not. And then he just goes, yeah.
The only one.
Yeah.
The only one what? That's the
Anyway, yeah, thanks again to Tommy Patterson. This has been another installment Catching Up. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
I'm Jake.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Good night, Eric Bana.
This has been another Geek Out production. If you enjoyed what you heard, hey, we've got a new commentary every Monday. We've got a special episode every Friday. Of course, there's the usual catching up show every Wednesday. And you get book club episodes just about every Tuesday these days. Thanks for listening.